Morning, everybody. For some of you, this will be our second good morning as we just finished Coffee Moaning. And we were originally going to talk about Gaza within Coffee Moaning, but it's so stratospheric. It's so enormous. The escalation of the brutal violence and slaughter of the people that we felt it was right to ring fence it. And also, as it is such a horror story, we also are aware that not everybody can take it. And I think that when we are thinking about what we can watch and what we can hear and what we can, I'm always taken back to those that have no choice, because the world is not helping these people at all. We had a very strange weekend of, just stepping in and out of the horror story and trying to think what we would post and what we couldn't post. And in fact, have we got the reel that I posted? Let me just play this, because this was a little bit of what it's been like over the weekend for activists, for peaceful activists, peaceful humanitarians, and the kind of conversations that we are having like all the time now. And I was just struck to have these voice notes with this friend of mine, Sarah, and I was just struck by, this is just part of our life now. The acceptance is insane. So just have a listen.
And just to pre-warn before we get further into this live, we will be showing the footage is admittedly defocused and blurred, but we will be showing footage of the just ghastly atrocity that happened overnight of the journalists that have been burned to death and injured.
We won't be showing you the children.
No. Okay, so just going to play your post.
Medic whose phone they found on his person in the mass grave, his final prayer as he's saying sorry to his mother for choosing a job that looked after other people. I mean, can you imagine? And the prayer is just so beautiful as he's saying it. But yeah, thank you for that, because sometimes it's just hearing, you can get so lost in what other stories, but actually now as I'm talking to you here and I'm hearing myself getting so upset about this man, then that's obviously the thing to post, I think.
I mean, the most horrific thing I've kind of witnessed in, well, one of the most horrific things, let's put to one side the headless children. Was that video yesterday with the poor woman, and you can hear her cries as she's filming it and screaming "Yimma," which always reminds me of my grandma, actually. But and you see the bodies, literally bodies, shooting up in the air from the explosion. I mean, yeah.
So that was just us trying to decide between the videos that we'd just seen. I said over the last 24 hours, but actually it wasn't. It was just within a few hours what to post.
I mean, something happened on Friday for me around, I posted and began to repost and repost and repost different shots or clips or freeze frames or stills or moving image shots of that particular assault on Gaza, where you do see the silhouettes of three bodies flying through the air, like rag dolls, like collateral damage, like biological shrapnel through the air, and it just struck me, and I kept reposting it, saying, when will those who've said nothing say something? You've got to work pretty hard to curate yourself and curate your news receiving of news. Not hard enough, because the mainstream media, the Western media, the legacy media is tiptoeing around this and whitewashing it and justifying and choosing such selective language to still suggest that Palestinians somehow miraculously die through either a well-meaning mistake or hitting the wrong target and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the way in which the Western media uses the language it uses to whitewash and justify atrocity is beyond galling. It's staggering.
Please check out Owen Jones's post today about the way the BBC are fixing the language. It's so important that you know the con.
I mean, fixing the language. And then whenever the broadcasters or the mainstream broadcasters do try to go into a small fissure of truth or actuality, or try and share as best as you can, with no journalists allowed on the ground, try and share a scintilla of the truth of what it means to be on the ground as a Palestinian in the West Bank or Gaza, we have pressure groups coming straight in to close down any oxygen given or any air given to the actual experience of Gazans or Palestinians in any way, shape, or form. The idea that the idea that there's a systematic quashing of the news isn't an anti-Semitic trope. I always signed up to this idea that it is an anti-Semitic trope to say that things are controlled. We are witnessing it be controlled, and we can't now be told not to call it out for fear of being told you're indulging in an anti-Semitic trope. It's not necessarily Jewish people or Israeli people that are doing this. For whatever reasons, the press is promoting one side of the narrative in a moral way, and the other side of it as an accident, and like it's an earthquake. They're dealing with it like this is some kind of natural disaster. Whenever they talk about the deaths or plight of the Palestinians, it's as if this isn't being done to them. And
just one thing, when you see those bodies flying, I don't know how many feet up in the air, you can understand why the numbers of children are so much lower of dead than there actually are, because their tiny bodies get blasted into oblivion, absolutely blasted into oblivion. It's totally extraordinary that the leaders of the world are being allowed to get away with this. It's all of them. Keir Starmer, Macron, all of them. It's a stain on humanity. Nobody can get away. None of these leaders can get away with it. They cannot. They are complicit. France is opening their airspace to Netanyahu. Not supposed to do that as a member of the ICC. He's got an arrest warrant out for war crimes, starvation, starving people. And yet we just carry on. Now, the list of videos that we can't show you because they are so horrific. Our friend Michelle is here. I messaged Michelle yesterday and said, like, Michelle, do you think, I don't know what to do. I am desperate to show this video, but I also know I mustn't show this video because people can't bear it.
Michelle speaks because, to that here. She's posted.
Oh, it feels so conflicting and inhuman to have to say to someone, I don't think that's something you should post, that to protect them, but you know they're only trying to do the same for a nation, I suppose.
Yeah.
But she was right. She said, don't post it because people can't bear it and people will attack you for posting it. I was like, why don't people attack the people
doing it,
who are allowing this video where there is a paramedic. Oh, but don't forget, we don't listen to paramedics anymore. We don't listen to doctors anymore. Doctors can be taken in full sight, thrown into a torture prison, tortured. Israel can admit it by just saying he's Hamas. Multiple doctors have been writing open letters to governments across the world since the beginning. But guess what? We don't listen to doctors anymore. Do you remember when doctors had some respect? No. So there's a paramedic holding a child, and as one of the founders of Children Not Numbers, who I'm now ambassador for Children Not Numbers, said to me yesterday, and God bless her, she's pregnant as well, so God knows how she is able to bear this. And she said, somebody kept that child alive for the last 19 months against all possibility because of the lack of food, medical care, shelter, blankets. Somebody kept that child alive, and his end is a paramedic walking with him like this, under his arms, his hands blown off, his head blown off. And yet our media will still report on the beheaded babies that Biden saw a photograph of, that he did not see a photograph of, and the White House had to apologize that that wasn't true. But guess what? Beheaded Palestinian children just aren't the same. They're just not the same. 18,000 children killed. Imagine that. Imagine if it's an 18,000 English, American, French, German children have been killed. And we know that's probably half the number because they're blown sky high. And one last word, I'll say. No. One last sentence. Does anyone remember Trump 2 weeks ago saying, get those hostages back or hell will be unleashed like you've never seen? Do you remember that? Well, guess what? They have unleashed a hell on those hostages too, and on those families too. They don't give a shit about anything. They want their Riviera, they want the land, they want the oil, and they want Netanyahu kept out of prison. And it doesn't matter how many people are massacred.
The problem with all of this, and this is a problem that is how people who very much sit firmly on the sort of Netanyahu Israeli side of things, when you're presented the rationale, and we've heard it from senior members of President Trump's government, everything that goes or happens in Gaza or the West Bank is Hamas's fault. This has become the line. This is the credo that is delivered. That is a catch-all for any atrocity. This is how so-called individuals in America, in Britain, can deal with the lack of civilization around the deaths, is by forever saying to themselves, and this is why you get it as the mantra, it's Hamas, it's Hamas. It's because by saying it's Hamas, it's a way for some of these people who I'm sure must have hearts somewhere, wouldn't want their own children to go up in the air like rag dolls. The way they can get a wraparound on this, the only way they can get a wraparound on this is if they repeat the brainwashed mantra of it's Hamas, it's Hamas, it's Hamas. You can't use this line to engage in genocide. You just can't. It's nonsense. The one person who's done, we've said it many times, the worst for the Israeli PR and the publicity and Israeli standing in the world, Israel standing in the world, is Netanyahu and all of his cronies. We're now going to show you a clip from last night. This is the story is that Israel struck tents outside two major hospitals in the Gaza Strip, killing at least 2 people, including a local reporter, and injuring 9, including 6 reporters. One of the Israeli airstrikes hit a media tent outside Nasser Hospital.
Media tent.
A media tent.
A media tent outside Nasser Hospital.
Yeah. Killing Yusuf Al-Fakawi, a reporter for the Palestine Today TV news website, and another man. The problem again you've got here is what the Israeli PR machine and the American PR machine and some of the media in the UK is engaged in telling us is every single man in Palestine is Hamas.
And many Israelis will say every single child will grow up to be Hamas.
But let me just give you this kind of curious detail, which makes this such a kind of curiously fucked up detail. What they're trying to say is, what they're trying to delegitimize is anyone feeling hostile towards Israel. Now, you've lost your family, you've lost your home, you've lost your entire business, you've lost your land, you've lost the capacity to rebuild any form of life. And yet what the world is asking you to do, this is what, imagine what you feel like, what the world is sticking down your throat as your child is given to you in a bag. They're saying to you, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Take your place over there. What does this remind you of?
And then when you take your place over there, guess what? We're going to send leaflets to say to you, take your place over there now, and then pick up your last carrier bag and go over there, and then go over there, and then go over there. And that's been happening for 19 months.
I mean, look,
Displaced,
could you imagine?
displaced,
Could you
displaced,
imagine
displaced.
people saying to Israel, "Well, people tried, and look what's been unleashed." People saying, "Restrain Israel after October the 7th. Show some restraint." They haven't shown any restraint.
No, and now they have complete impunity because there's a madman in the White House who is making money hand over fist with his son-in-law, already buying and selling land.
But I don't understand. I don't
is-
understand. I'd like to sit opposite all those people who've got the documentary knocked off TV. How can you sit there having shown zero restraint way beyond October the 7th? But let's use October the 7th as a little starting point. But since you've shown no restraint whatsoever, and your
No
justification
restraint.
is we should show no restraint because it's Hamas. So no restraint for anything. But yet you're asking, let's just focus on men for the moment, because men in Palestine get no fucking look in. But you're asking all the men in Palestine to show no fury, no upset, no resistance, no crossness, no anger. Because if they do, they are automatically deemed a terrorist.
But they don't even have to do that. They just have to be breathing, Mark. So
I'm going to show you a clip. We're going to show you this clip now. It is blurred. And I am then at the end of it going to show you a still. And the point of showing the still is that it needs to become the equivalent image to that image of that poor girl in the Vietnam War who was running through the street with Agent Orange all over her.
The first time I saw this clip this morning, it was blurred, and then the actual clip came up to me.
This is blurred.
And
this is blurred.
I collapsed. I literally collapsed because I have never in my life seen anything like that.
There's a man in that chair burning.
And these brave colleagues in the president are trying to lift him out with their bare hands out the frame. Don't go looking to see it that.
I am now going to show an image. It's a still image.
So close your eyes for 5 seconds. That's how he was throughout that screaming.
Ahmed Mansour.
Yeah.
Presumably in shock or pinioned to his chair.
Remarkably, the last I heard, he was alive. Can you even imagine where he is at? Because there's no anaesthetic. Children are having their legs and arms amputated with no anaesthetic, and they have been for months and months and months and months. And I was reading an article the other day with a number of doctors that were saying many of those amputations they don't need the amputation, but we've got no antibiotics. We've got no way of treating these wounds. So we have to, it's like World War One, just hacking limbs off. But hey, yeah, be careful that you say anything about this in too impassioned a way, because you will be called anti-Semitic.
They've made a mockery of it. So some of the additional details of today that are just beyond a joke. France has allowed Netanyahu to fly through its airspace, and he's landing in America. He's meeting with Donald Trump. He's just come out 2 minutes ago. Netanyahu has just met with the US Commerce Secretary to negotiate tariffs. He's going to be meeting Donald Trump. They're going to be discussing tariffs, efforts to bring back Israeli hostages, Israeli-Turkish relations, the Iranian threat, and a fight against the International Criminal Court. Oh my God. Two rogue individuals.
It's supposed to be for Black and brown people, the International Court of Justice to control. That's what we now know. Purely colonialist bollocks. And they've been so brave, the ICC, because they've all been picked on individually. Do you know that? Bullied. The other really big story over the weekend that I don't want us to run out of time for was this horrific case of the ambulance and the pack of lies that have been told about it. So 15, I think, was it 15, 12, 15.
You've seen the footage.
You've seen the mass grave. You know, that was the mass grave was discovered. Even the ambulance was in the mass grave, hurriedly covered over. People with paramedics still with their gloves on, some with hands tied behind their back. And the grave, this was actually reported in the New York Post, New York Times. So I can't actually believe the New York Times published this. But anyway, a telephone, what an old-fashioned thing. A mobile phone was found in the pocket of one of the paramedics in said mass grave. And guess what? The evidence was all there, plain as day. The shots of the ambulances clearly marked as ambulances with flashing lights, because apparently that wasn't so, was it? That's what Israel
they felt they were moving
us.
suspiciously towards.
No, first of all, they said there was no markings of an ambulance. There was no light on. Afterwards, they said there were. Anyway,
can I just ask, how does an ambulance with flashing blue lights move suspiciously?
Well, no, because that's the change story. That's
no, I know it is. I'm just being facetious, but I mean, it's kind of.
But
I'm
the first
curious
lie,
to know.
the first pack of lies was they didn't know, there was no lights on, there was nothing, right? So the video shows very clearly everything: the driving up, the lights, the lot, and the shooting. Some of the people in the mass grave were found with gunshots that were absolutely close up.
And
these are doctors, right? These are doctors that are said, but oh no, we don't listen to doctors anymore. So in this mobile phone, that's what I was talking about in that reel. This paramedic, we hear him die. We hear the shots and we hear him die, and we hear him praying, and we hear him asking over and over again for forgiveness to his mother for choosing a job where it helped other people. He's dying. You hear his last breath, right? You're not seeing anything. What a compelling video evidence. You would think that would be on every news channel, wouldn't you? You don't have to see anything. There's nothing gruesome. There's nothing that would, offend. Well, apart from the man dying, of course, but then, of course, that's not offensive.
But also, what would offend is proof that Israel was lying.
Yeah, but somebody said to me, do you notice how he doesn't say one bad thing about the people that were in the action of murdering him, because you can still hear the shots? He's asking for forgiveness.
I just want to say, we're going to show, and is this presumably, this is what Thornbury's talking about in a moment. I just want to read this comment out because this is really important. One can end up feeling helpless, hopeless, and like we're screaming into an abyss. And Jackie Pugh says, I get the feeling we are just protesting for nothing, no one cares. I just want to pivot us back to the story 2 weeks ago. The documentary Oscar winner who was kidnapped by the Israelis and was then released. I think everyone in the international community can vouch for the rush of attention on that. Okay, admittedly, probably because there was the American Oscar aspect to it.
Pressure came from famous people.
So when pressure is exerted, it can affect change.
Absolutely.
It's really important we feel that.
It can. If every time you reshare something, you copy in the Labour Party, you copy in the ICC, you copy in, you tag all the news channels. Why haven't you reported? Why haven't you? Imagine if everybody does that. There is power in solidarity.
Now, we're going to show a clip by Emily Thornberry. I mean, Nikki Ball makes the point. Emily Thornberry used a hell of a lot of words to avoid saying Israel actually lied. But, and I have to confess.
It's as close as you're going to get.
Yes, it's as close as you're going to get with a politician. I find it insufferable.
Can't stand her.
But we're going to play this.
Absam Mohammed, and I know Yang very well. I know Absam particularly because she's a member of the Foreign Affairs.
These are the two MPs, I presume, who were denied access to
arrested,
deported to Labour MPs.
Select Committee, and these are two young women who are potential leaders. I mean, people listen to what they say. They are highly respected parliamentarians, and Israel is badly advised to try to alienate them, to humiliate them and to treat them in this way, because people listen to what these two young women say, and they will do for decades to come. And in my view, Israel really needs to start making friends as opposed to alienating people in this way. I think that it's an insult to Britain, and I think it's an insult to Parliament. I am outraged, and I cannot believe that the leader of the opposition would simply take on the face of it, what it is that the Israelis say. Because we know that there are times when the Israelis say what the Israelis say first time isn't what they say when they've had a chance to think about it. All we have to think about at the moment is the way in which those people arriving at the scene in ambulances were shot, and the first description and explanation that the Israelis gave, and now they're going back on it. I think that they will rue the day that they did this to British parliamentarians. This is the first time that they've ever refused MPs access to the country, and they were going with a parliamentary group that was organised with Carbu that has brought parliamentarians into the region for decades, twice a year. And frankly, the insight the parliamentarians have is because they visit the area. If Israel has something to hide, then that would be a terrible thing. But frankly, they should be open to parliamentarians going to see what is actually happening on the ground.
Imagine saying, if Israel has got anything to hide, when Israel hasn't allowed journalists in for 19 months, and the only facts, inverted commas, they've allowed us to have what the IDF has given us, the IOF, sorry.
The other thing as well to bear in mind is that British planes flying from Cyprus have been doing reconnaissance flights, spy flights, monitoring the Gaza Strip for intelligence purposes for Israel. They have footage of what happened to one of the British aid workers. Okay, if we can't get on board with Palestinian aid workers or Palestinian journalists, maybe we could get on board with a British aid worker who was killed by the Israelis. And the British government are refusing to allow that footage to be seen or used for anything.
It's just interesting. Lots of people are saying wishy-washy beyond
belief.
But this is where we're at. That's the strongest thing said about the way Israel are behaving. And that's it. That's as strong as it gets.
Anna-Marie Shellard, that was a word whirlpool.
That's as strong as it gets from our government, who are still sending arms to Israel. Are you happy with that?
Now, I want to show a clip that I found inspiring. Gabor Mate. I think in these times of total collapse where we feel hopeless, we feel unable to enact change, we need, in a sense, almost gurus to inspire us. And this really, really struck a chord for me.
Called moral injury. And moral injury happens when you're watching something terrible happen and you can't stop it. And you're helpless in the face of it. As I said earlier, it's impossible to have your eyes open and not to have your heart broken. So I hope your hearts are broken. And I hope they're broken every day. Because what's going on happens every day. So look, here's what I would say to you. It's true what I said, that all the speaking that I've done or other people have done internationally, all the advocacy that you may have done, all the letter writing and petitions that you may have signed, have not saved a single finger of a single Gazan child. Some might say that we have failed. Don't believe that for 1 second. You have not failed. The very fact that in the face of all the propaganda and all the withholding of truth, so many people's hearts are broken, that's a sign, that's a tribute to humanity. And if your heart is broken, that's a tribute to you. Even if you feel brokenhearted and helpless and hopeless and in despair, don't let that get to you, because you have a larger goal here, which is to contribute to the light and the truth in the world as best you see it. And that is a long-term struggle. It's a long-term calling, and all of us can contribute to it.
That's so beautiful.
And I want to say something else in the spirit of this. I was talking to Dina about this at the weekend. It's really important. You will probably sense it from our Instagram accounts. It's really important that this is a marathon against an atrocity. This is a marathon sort of competition to race against the lack of truth, the lies, the genocide, the just the horrors that are going on. But it is a marathon, and you have to pause. You have to take time out. You have to have, pit stops. You have to be able to pause for breath. You need to escape and lose yourself, whether it be something like mindless, like the Minecraft movie, or some stupid post of silliness. It's okay to step back, take stock, recalibrate, and then step back forward. It doesn't mean you're letting go. It doesn't mean you're not being part of the struggle, part of the sharing of the truth. Keep talking about it, but don't lose yourself in it, because otherwise you no longer become a foot soldier for it.
And find other people that are aligned, because he's right. The more you gather with people that are outraged by this, the more light goes out into the world. And that's all that we can do. I mean, I'm really struggling at the moment and finding the ways to be us, for you guys, and to be fun and to be all those things, but to also be, you know, serious about a very serious issue. But that's what we've all got to manage. We've got to manage our lives so we can do it all. And that is being a human. Somebody there said, I'm ashamed of being a human. Don't be, because you're a good human. You're sitting, you're engaging, you're questioning, you're feeling. And that's what I think makes a good human.
Louise McIntosh, finding people aligned is so difficult. We're going to have to go. You're right. But listen, by pumping out the light, by having more conversations, by not letting it disappear, you are creating a larger footprint, a footprint, and also a digital footprint, an emotional footprint, a spiritual footprint, and an emotional and mental health footprint that becomes bigger and more difficult to deny or pretend hasn't happened.
After the final cleansing, if they have cleansed everyone out of there and they have their Riviera, we must continue, because that Riviera will be built on the bones of those people. So we carry on whatever. And please, on that note, Michelle, if you could do me a favor, lovely Michelle, could you put the Eventbrite link under here? We are doing an event on Saturday, this Saturday. Now, it doesn't matter if you can't make the live, because it is uploaded. I would really, really love it if you could join us. It would be a night of Dina and I cooking. Mark will be there. We'll be talking to children, not numbers. It will be a night of, there will be some sadness, but also light, and, you know, a night about how incredible children are and what a light they are, every one of them in the world, every single child. So please join us on Saturday. We'll be cooking a beautiful Middle Eastern dish, and be nice to see as many of you there as possible.
Have a good day, guys. And
Michelle, can you put the link up for us?
Something else will be landing later today as well.